Hello, I'm Richard Seltzer. I'd like to share with you an excerpt from my novel Nevermind that was recently published by All Things That Matter Press. Here's the prologue of that novel. Ruth, one letter shy of truth, the sixth of 7 children, grew up in a row house in East Falls, an immigrant neighborhood of Philadelphia, at a time of sharp social distinctions. The Kelly family lived in a mansion on top of a nearby hill. Grace Kelly, 9 years younger than Ruth, grew up there. Sometimes Ruth would get a chance to play tennis in the courts, but for the most part that was a dreamland, near physically but far away socially and economically. The street where Ruth lived was paved with cobblestones. Once a week, a horse-drawn ice wagon rattled by. Once a month, the rag and bone man. The row house was narrow and deep. From the street, you entered a long hallway that led to a staircase. The door to the living room was on the left. That room opened to the dining room, which opened into the kitchen, where a wash tub, a hand-cranked clothes wringer, and an ironing board were crammed together among the pots, pans, and cooking utensils. The kitchen door at the back opened onto a rickety porch which overlooked a patch of dirt yard. Upstairs were 3 small bedrooms. Up another flight were 3 more. At the very top was the attic room where Ruth slept. Money was scarce. The older kids took care of the younger ones. Emily, the youngest of the 7, slept in Abby and Madeline's room on the 3rd floor. Madeline and Abby had taken care of her since she was an infant and hadn't allowed Ruth to hold her, much less change her diaper or feed her. They insisted that babies are fragile and that 5-year-old Ruth was far too young to be so entrusted. Ruth was her mother's favorite. Emily was father's. But physically they were reversed. Emily, like all her sisters except Ruth, and like their aunties, resembled her mother, Ruth. Ruth alone looked like father. Her mother, Mabel, half Welsh and half Irish, and 100% Protestant, was short, with a round, kind face, bright blue eyes, and shoulder-length, curly black hair that she wore tied in a bun at the back. Her father, Philip, was the manager of the general store across the street. Strikingly handsome, tall and thin, with dark brown eyes, blonde hair and mustache, he dressed and acted like a southern plantation owner, wearing silk shirts and a tan suit, while his children were all in hand-me-downs. At mealtime, Ruth's mother served father first, separately from the rest of the family. He never talked to the children about his background. Ruth knew that he was from Tennessee, but she didn't know if he had any living relatives. Ruth knew very little about father, which she first realized when she was 9, a few months before her mother died. That night, at bedtime, her mother, who was pregnant, was slow to join her. She sat beside Ruth on the bed in her attic room, where the sloping sides of the roof converged, and told her stories that she did every night, not ones from books, but rather ones that she remembered or made up, telling them with dramatic flair, changing voices that spoke in sync with shadows she cast on the wall. That night her mother had bruises on both cheeks and drops of blood in her left nostril. How could father hurt Mommy this way? It was impossible, against nature, against his nature. It couldn't have been as bad as it looked. Mommy forgave him, always forgave him, and she repeatedly told Ruth, "It's nothing, don't worry." Ruth kissed her cheeks and wiped away the blood with a wet washcloth. "What happened, Mommy?" Ruth asked, as she always asked. Her mother answered, "Never mind, never mind. Give me now my never mind." "Happily ever after time," Ruth added, as she always did, and they laughed together, chasing away tears with laughter. Nevermind was magic, her mother claimed. When you say that, when you believe that, bad things that have happened go away. They never happened at all. You're free to live a new life without them. Then why don't you say it all the time, Mommy, when the least little thing goes wrong? The more you use it, the more it loses its power. Use it too often, and it'll have no effect at all when you really need it. Save it up for years if you can. I've used it far too often. So for me, it no longer works. But you, my love, I hope you never need it, never need to say it. And I don't mean just mouthing the words. I mean believing them with your whole heart and soul. I hope you'll never need such a spell, never need to wish for a fresh start, a new life, and a new world to live in. Ruth understood that to make the Nevermind work, just saying the words wasn't enough. She would have to pray them, like she said her prayers when she kneeled beside her bed at night, God blessing everyone in the family and everyone whose name she knew. When she first saw a phone book with page after page of names, she knew it was her duty to memorize as many names as she could, and God bless them all. That was how she built her ability to memorize, which made it easy for her later to learn Latin and French, and to quickly learn parts and plays. Over the years, Ruth often wanted to use the Nevermind, but she restrained herself, believing that she had that power in reserve as a last resort, and that she should only use it when she really needed to. She found ways to cope without it. Using it unnecessarily would be a waste, a sacrilege. When she was tempted, she would run the words through her mind, sometimes even speak them aloud, but she never gave them the intensity, the oneness of will that could make them real. Before getting to that point, she would realize that what had seemed so important was too trivial to waste magic on. She could deal with it. She could get over it. She could move on. She got used to coping and forgiving and making the most of bad situations. And over time, her belief faded as her ingenuity and determination grew. The more she believed in herself, the less she needed to believe in the magic of Nevermind. If you enjoyed this story, please let me know in comments, and I'll do more of the same. My name again is Richard Seltzer, as in Alka-Seltzer. My email is seltzer@seltzerbooks.com. My most recent books are Parallel Lives, Beyond the Fourth Door, and Nevermind, which is where this came from. You can find them all at Amazon as paperbacks and as ebooks. They can be read in any order. They're independent stories with overlapping theme and styles. Each presents a different view of reality, a different way of trying to make sense of the mysteries of life.